Hey there. So today I want to talk about cooperation. Cooperation is in direct opposition to, though it is not oppositional to, the framework of competition. It is perhaps the antithesis of competition. In that way, it, just like competition, has an extremely important role in the development of us as a species. But I believe that cooperation in particular holds the capacity to give us access to different emotional and intellectual ways of relating to one another. Cooperation is, I believe, at the heart of our nature as a social species. It is something that we can just intrinsically understand what it looks like when we see someone or a group of people acting cooperatively. Cooperation is at its heart, I believe, about communication and community, right? The way that everybody in a community operates is meant to be cooperative in that we are co-operating. Doesn't mean that there is no place for the individual, doesn't even mean that there's no place for competition. It just means that ultimately all of that is in service to the all. It ultimately just means that all of that is in service to connection, to one another, and to our shared objectives. Competition is essentially a great way to play games. Cooperation is a great way to get things done. And the way that we learn in a lot of instances is actually as a result of competitive cooperation, right? So we're seeing who can do more of the thing that is benefiting us all. And that's essentially just a way to play a game, a way to make the cooperation more interesting. But in that framework, competition is just built on a cooperative model of reality. And for me, the cooperative piece is more important than the competitive piece, though they are in relationship to one another. And, almost can't be removed from one another on some level, especially when we're coming from the framework that we're coming from right now, which is hyper competitive, right? Everybody is trained to destroy and compete with one another. And that, for me, is at the heart of some of our really profound traumas as a species, is that everything is in competition to somebody else. So as a result, we can never really relax with anybody, right? Everyone is there to prove something. Everyone is there to defeat somebody. Everybody is having conversation to know more than the other person, or to say like, oh, look at this thing that I learned. In reality, someone could just be sharing and you might not know what they're talking about. So for me, coming from a monastic framework and a framework of saying like, oh yeah, I'm trying to learn from everybody. I'm hoping actually that lots of people know lots of things I don't know. The more people know that I don't know, the more we all are able to know together through cooperative frameworks. And this is tied up in, we collective commons, open source, the idea that everybody's knowledge is meant to be shared, not to be hoarded or used as a tool to dominate others. That for me is like at the heart of how we all need to heal our collective traumas as a species around cooperation, collaboration, and frameworks that are about efficacy still, right? Because we still have to be able to maintain our goals. We still have to be able to achieve our goals. We still have to be able to say collectively we're going to move forward. And I think as a result of a lot of the propaganda we've received, we've kind of been beaten over the head with the idea that people who are talking about cooperation and collaboration are just they're know nothing, do nothing sort of people who are just looking to freeload off of other people's skillfulness. The truth is that cooperation is actually about saying, like, well, I'm good at this and you're good at this, so what if we made each other's lives a little bit easier? I offer this, you offer that, and both of us are better off. And that, for me, is a really tricky thing to hold healthily these days. And it requires a lot of us to usually step way back from each other, to step way back from our relationships to each other, to step way back from our urgency to go and move and make decisions really quickly and unilaterally and oh, I got to do this and no, I got to do that. At the heart of cooperative frameworks, we're kind of all saying, like, whoa, 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 do we understand these things at the same, in the same way? Are we all using the words in the same way? Are we all discussing our goals and our priorities in the same way? Or is the way, because of my skill set, right, because of what I'm good at, I'm seeing this through this lens, but because of what you're good at, you're probably seeing this through your lens. And so our lenses might actually not be prioritizing the same things. And that, while it can seem like, oh yeah, who cares, whatever, just go do whatever you want, that again kind of gets us caught up in this competitive framework, as opposed to bringing us into, oh, if we all take a step back and we all work a little bit harder to translate and communicate with one another, then we're actually able to step into a more collaborative space. But that requires a lot of earnest effort and a lot of earnest time. And that's why I'm saying there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of power in us all taking big steps back, because that allows us to first assess what's real, right? Which is, I have to assess my own strengths and weaknesses. Then we have to I'm not assessing someone else's strengths and weaknesses. I'm relying on their own ability to assess their own strengths and weaknesses. And then to begin to share and triangulate based on how everybody's viewing the thing, right? And this is an inherently complex thing, especially in a competitive world, right? Because in a competitive world, there is no incentive to say what I suck at. And there's usually a lot of guilt and shame and fear associated with sucking at something. But I can tell you very specifically, there are lots of things I suck at. That's necessary, because the things that I'm not good at, the things that I'm learning how to do, require me to not know how to do them yet, so that I can go through the learning journey with those skills. At the heart of cooperation, at the heart of cooperative models, is an understanding that learning journey takes a lot of time, because learning takes practice. And if we just have this assumption that everybody has to know everything, then we're all spending a lot of calories in a way that's deeply inefficient. And this is at the heart, why we can look at our existing learning model, right? We can say, like, oh, you're a tradesman with this, I'm a tradesman with this, and let's just use a construction model, right? Like a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter are all in the marketplace. The person who's able to unite them around a shared project and a shared languaging and kind of manage the shared work is able to kind of bring everybody together to achieve one solid aim. But it requires everybody to kind of respect everybody else's domains. It requires everybody to respect, I know how to do this, you know how to do this, we're all going to share our effort, so that we could, rather than just build one house shitty, build 3 houses really well. And so that piece to me is really at the heart of the strength of a cooperative model, but it also requires a lot of connection and relationship to what's real. It requires all of us to take a big step back from hubris, from pride, from saying, oh, I can do it myself, which is a very childlike sort of perspective, right? There's a child sort of wound usually caught up in that pridefulness. And that's okay, right? Because we're all here to cooperate. So we're all here to take a step back and say, oh, this feels really hard for you. Let's take some time to process that. Let's take some time to move past that and move through that toward more effectiveness. And some people would say, oh, well, that's not very effective. You should just fire the guy and hire somebody else, or fire the person and hire somebody else. And sure, that would be fine if we were purely in a competitive framework where we said, you don't make the cut, get the hell out. But a competitive and a cooperative framework are different. Cooperative framework moves from the understanding that our interests are intrinsically linked with one another. I cannot remove my interests from your interests because we live in an intrinsically linked thermodynamic system that is caught up in the truth of all, right? We are all linked. And so if I throw you out into the street and you develop a drinking problem, or you have trouble supporting your family, we all suffer. We literally all suffer. Because a cooperative model is born of an understanding that everything is linked, that we cannot remove anybody from the equation unless we're going to start killing each other, unless we're going to say, you deserve resources, you don't deserve resources, which fundamentally leads to more trauma, leads to more fear, leads to more pain, leads to this downward cycle of energy and trajectory. And that, for me, is the opposite of what we're attempting to achieve together as a species. And this is where, for me, it's at the heart of what we're doing with each other as a result of our desire to regenerate community again. Because community, again, is born of the idea that all of our interests can be served through cooperative means. Our competitive framework means one person is going to win and one person is going to lose, and everybody just has to deal with that. And for me, it's all well and good within a cooperative game set. One person wins, one person loses. Cool, good game, high five. We bow, as we all say, right? When we spar, when we're training on the mat, when we're playing, me understanding that losing isn't bad, right? So I don't have an intrinsic fear of losing, actually allows me to learn better, right? When I don't have fear at the heart of my actions, I learn better because I'm not releasing cortisol and stress hormones constantly. So I'm able to be very clear in my perspective of what the hell is happening, right? What is actually going on is very difficult to discern when we're stressing out constantly. And if I'm constantly worried about losing because losing means I might die, then that's a very different reality than me saying, oh man, I got to get better because I want to be able to play with everybody and I want to be skillful, right? Me saying I want to be skillful and me saying I don't want to die are very different motivations for our reality. And that, for me, is at the heart and the crux of what we're attempting to achieve through cooperative community regeneration, is this idea that actually fear is the enemy, right? And love is our ally, because our ability to align with each other through love rather than fear is what's actually going to keep us all on this regenerative spiral together, which is about play, right? Because games and competition is about play. It's not about domination and defeat. It's about playful, joyful exploration within a rule set. We all learn from each other. We all grow with each other. And the more I grow, right, the better, ideally, all of my partners become. And this is something that really intrinsically is deeply rooted in my programming as a martial artist. Is actually, I only want to train with people who are really good I want to train ideally with people who are much better than me, because the more people I find who are better than me, the better I get. And the better I get, the better we all get, because now I'm a better training partner for either someone who's coming up or someone who was above me and is now able to compete with someone on an equal level, on an equal frame. Being better or worse than somebody is actually about responsibility to the other person. If I know more than somebody, it's my responsibility to them to help them know more than they knew before. If someone is better than me, it is their responsibility to me to help me get better, to help me learn what I need to learn to get up to speed. And that responsibility, obligation to each other, respect for one another, which is non-negotiable, right? The respect piece is non-negotiable. I don't just respect people who are better than me because they can kick my ass. I respect everybody because everybody's here to do the same thing I am. And we're all cooperating with each other in a competitive game, maybe. But maybe the game today is how many berries can we gather? And really, it's just like, no, what was I using? What was I doing? I was using this competitive model to actually get us all to make sure that we all had enough berries for each other. And for the people who broke their leg yesterday who can't afford to go pick berries with us. It's not, tough shit, guy, you broke your leg, you don't get any berries. It's, oh man, we all got to get out there and make sure that we get enough berries for the guy who broke their leg yesterday. And that, for me, is at the heart of how we heal the traumas, right? That there's no shame in not knowing something. There's no guilt in not being able to do what you need to do. There's actually responsibility and obligation to each other to make sure that everybody has enough, everybody has what they need. And that, to me, is at the heart of what we're trying to do here. Does it make me feel better to beat you? Or does it make me feel better to know that everybody's happy and safe and healthy? I think the latter, personally. So, went a little bit down the rabbit hole of cooperation today. I have a lot of thoughts about it. I could talk about it for hours, but the truth of it is I deeply thank you if you've gone down the rabbit hole with me this far. Deeply appreciate your time. I deeply appreciate your interest in cooperating with each other. And that is at the heart of how we regenerate our communities. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.